Europe has quite strong data protection rules in force since almost 6 years, And over the last 10 years, you've seen a growing number of women being propelled on top of some of these watchdogs. You have about 30 European watchdogs who are empowered to enforce the well-known GDPR rules, which can lead to fines of almost 4% of a company's annual turnover. One of the most famous names over the past 10 years has been Helen Dixon, who was, until last month, the head of the Irish data protection regulator. Why has she become a household name to many people? Well, a lot of the US big tech firms have an EU base in Ireland, and that has propelled her overnight, basically, with GDPR into almost the EU's main tech enforcer. Now, this has not always made her big friends, and she's been the subject of a lot of criticism, sometimes even being told she's too slow, too soft, or in cahoots with companies. But over her 10 years, she's levied about 2.8 billion euros in fines, which is something that was unheard of before GDPR came into force.
Walk us through some of the challenges, the biggest challenges that these regulators face when it comes to trying to make these really big calls and fines on a sector that is notably and famously very male-dominated.
I mean, for women, I think I spoke to Helen Dixon as she was about to leave her regulator in January, and I asked her this: do you think that you face a harder time over the past 10 years because you're a woman? I mean, she has been the brunt of a lot of criticism, but she said, I don't think that would be right to say. I mean, her predecessor was a man, and they had some criticism too. But she does say that women generally in leading public positions do face a harder time, maybe on social media and other public spheres. I mean, it's we live in a world where everything is exposed that you do these days. And she did acknowledge that this is something that women in the public sphere do face a harder time doing. I mean, especially a lot of the critics that she's faced over the years were men. So I do think there's some role here.
Is the conclusion from Europe, though, that women actually make better regulators in the tech space? That seems to be the conclusion that I think a lot of people are increasingly coming to. Or is this just an accident? Are they there? I'm wondering what we can draw from the fact that there are so many female regulators and they are doing such an important job and having such a big impact. Can I draw a conclusion between one and the other?
Well, I'm a woman myself, so I'm a bit biased. But it's true that when you look at the world beyond data protection, if you look at the antitrust world, the three main regulators there in the US, in the UK, and in the EU at the moment are led by women. Margrethe Vestager in the EU is obviously the most famous name, and she's made her mark not just once but twice this week as well. Levying a huge fine against Apple on Monday. And then the well-known DMA, a new digital rule, came into force yesterday, which will empower her and her successor even further. I don't know. I mean, Helen Dixon in Ireland, by now has been replaced by two men. So she, as I said, she left her job last month, and she's already been replaced by two men. A third person is being hired to replace her. So one woman being replaced by two or three men is maybe a nice image to see what it's for me. But we'll see who the successor of Margrethe Vestager will be. I mean, her term is running out at the end of this year with new EU elections and a new European Commission coming in. Will the new competition commissioner be again a woman or a man? So we will see how this will all play out going forward. But it's true that the world of tech regulation is only growing and expanding with new EU digital rules having come into force with the DMA, DSA, on top of GDPR, and more rules coming in AI. So more challenges coming our way, and we'll see if it's all women.